according to Scott Bessent and to Donald Trump, this is their attempt to try to reinvigorate manufacturing. Again, I don't know anything about this. All I know is that what I said is let's wait and see. And so currently, the second quarter, we had a bigger raise in GDP and inflation didn't go crazy. And so all the stuff that those doomsayers were saying about the tariffs didn't come true. And Trump just got a great deal, a great tariff deal worked out with the European Union. Big news. The U.S. second quarter gross domestic product initial estimate is 3% growth. The first quarter was minus 5%. So that's and by the way, this woman here she's the poster child for shit liberalism. Yeah. Imagine being her, Kurt. Good luck getting into an improv troupe when all you are famous for is shouting no.
That's Patton Oswalt. He can work in Hollywood.
So Grok, we asked, hey Grok, is this bullish? Yes, the second quarter of 2025 GDP advance estimate of 3% is bullish. It beats the 2.6% forecast, reverses the first quarter's contraction. So we had a contraction. So I think you have to have 2 quarters in a row of contraction for it to be considered a recession. I think, look that up. Is it 2 quarters in a row? So we only had 1 quarter, which was a contraction of 0.5%, and now it's a growth of 3%, and it signals economic resilience amid tariffs, driven by strong consumer spending and reduced imports. Markets may rally, though watch inflation.
That's because you know how everything's based on the mood of investors?
Yes.
So they act like it's scientific, but if the majority of people think it's good, the tariffs happen, then that's what happens.
And that's what
how
happened.
The market works, like a magic.
So Heather Long says the U.S. economy saw 3% growth in second quarter in GDP, but it was highly unusual. A massive decline in imports, minus 35% for goods, lifted the GDP, and consumption was plus 1.4%, a solid but not spectacular number. Business investment declined in the second quarter. This is an economy running just above 1% if you strip out the trade noise. Real final sales to private domestic purchases was 1.2%. So I'm not exactly sure what any of that means.
Yeah, that sounds like it's still better. Also, I thought GDP, it doesn't count for shit.
As Tucker Carlson said, I don't even know what GDP is. The way I judge an economy is if my 2 kids who are 27 years old with a full-time job can afford a house, then we have a good economy. They cannot afford a house, so we have a crap economy. And that's according to... so now get this, CNBC. So... CNBC is currently mocking the crap out of Democrats and Elizabeth Warren after the latest inflation and strong GDP report. They've become a laughingstock. So I didn't know that CNBC has permission to rip on Democrats now. Next, you're going to see Rachel Maddow in rodeo getup putting on a lasso around Chris Cuomo and branding his ass with a red-hot MAGA iron. Yeehaw! There's a new wind blowing, and it's blowing to the right.
Yeah, so they're showing gratitude for Trump not releasing all the Epstein criminals,
yes.
Which most of them work there.
Yeah. So here's what CNBC said about this.
The left and people that don't like the president and don't want things to work. And, like Senator Elizabeth Warren will come on and say, inflation's out of control and the economy is getting killed by what's happening by these tariffs. This 3% with the market at new highs, and really we haven't seen inflation, go up back to 3%. Maybe it will this week. Maybe we'll see it. But none of these horrible things have happened, but they still talk like it's happening. It's amazing.
Well, there's an important lesson there. Don't pick a congressman to be your money manager. That's what I would say. But in the end, Congress has their own reasons to point out certain things. And the Democrats, of course, as you pointed out, really don't want to see the current administration have some success. But there's no doubt that this is some success. We're seeing more horsepower. We're seeing better equities. Inflation really hasn't changed much in the last year or so.
So that's coming straight from CNBC, which, is the sister station to MSNBC. And they're ripping on Democrats, and they're So here is from CNBC, U.S. economy grew at 3% rate in quarter two, a better than expected pace, even as Trump's tariffs hit. So here are the key points. Gross domestic product jumped 3% for the second quarter, better than the 2.3% estimate, and it reverses the 0.5% decline. Consumer spending rose 1.4% in the second quarter, better than the 0.5% in this previous period. Exports declined 1.8% during this period. Imports fell 30%. Reversing a 37.9% surge in quarter one. President Trump responded to the GDP report with a fresh demand for the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. So the U.S. economy, so blah, blah, gross domestic, blah, blah, we already did this. That topped the Dow Jones estimate, blah, 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 blah. Financial markets reacted little to the report, with stock index futures mixed and Treasury yields higher. The word of the summer for the economy is resilient, said Heather Long, chief economist at Navy Federal Credit Union. The consumer is hanging in there, but still on edge until the trade deals are done. Well, we just had another trade deal with the European Union, and Trump slaughtered the European Union. He gets to put a 15% tariff on all their goods, and they have to invest over $1 trillion in the United States, $750 billion buying our energy, and $600 billion in purchasing mostly weapons.
And we blew up their gas pipeline. Us in Norway, and that's terrorism.
And they let us do it. The period reported Wednesday includes President Trump's April 2nd Liberation Day tariff announcement. Imports had jumped in the first quarter as companies sought to get ahead of the announcement. Over the past 3 months, Trump has been engaged in multiple rounds of saber-rattling and often intense negotiations with U.S. trading partners that have jangled nerves, but nonetheless coincided with a subdued but solid pace of economic growth. I hate when my nerves get jangled.
Yeah.
The talks have largely resulted in tariffs well above where they were at the beginning of the year, but not as severe as initially proposed. The anti-Trump story has been that we're going to have a recession or a depression because of these tariffs, which are going to jack up prices and cause consumers to run for the exits. That's Kevin Hassett, National Economic Council Director, said on CNBC. In fact, every single thing about this GDP release has shown strength. Consumer spending rose 1.4% in the quarter. All right, we already covered this twice now.
Yeah.
Trump responded to the GDP report with a fresh demand for, using his nickname for Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, the president added, "Too late, must now lower the rate. No inflation. Let people buy and refinance their homes." There were some signs of a slowdown in the report. Final sales to private domestic purchasers, a metric that the Fed watches closely as a demand indicator, rose just 1.2%, down from 1.9% increase in quarter one, and the slowest gain since the fourth quarter of 2022. The decline in exports added more than 5 percentage points to the headline number, meaning the trend could reverse in the third quarter. Trump has been complaining about high mortgage rates, which have held back the housing market. Residential investment fell 4.6% in the second quarter. No kidding. At the same time, GDP posted its strongest rise without help from government spending. Federal outlays declined 3.7%, coming off a 4.6% drop in the first quarter. State and local government spending rose 3%. And this is that billionaire guy, Tom Steyer. Isn't that who that is? He wanted to run. Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he even ran for president. Trump's tariffs aren't fueling growth. They're distorting the data. This is according to this guy.
What else is new? Remember the inflation that wasn't happening when we had a recession that wasn't happening?
Yeah. Second quarter GDP jumped 3% only because imports crashed. Real domestic demand, just 1.2%, slowest since 2022. Bad policy and a fake bump. I had a fake bump when I was in college. I almost had to get a nose surgery.
I thought I had herpes one time, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a fake bump. It was merely a staph infection.
So Patrick says GDP distortion argument is cherry picking. So he's saying that Tom Steyer's cherry picking. When imports surge, GDP gets dragged down as in quarter one. Critics call it real. When imports drop, GDP props up as in quarter two. Suddenly it's fake. You can't have it both ways. GDP always includes trade balances. That's how the formula works. GDP equals C plus 1 plus G plus X minus M. It's not manipulation, it's math. I don't know what any of that means.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing's manipulation. One oligarch doesn't like it. There's some jostling of oligarchs going on, and they're telling you this and that. Can I afford a house or not yet? We'll see.
I say they're both right. I say it's called math manipulation. How about that?
Are you math manipulating me right now?
Are you math manipulating me? So in the short term, for quarter two, we didn't enter the. We find out how many quarters it has to be negative in a contraction for it to be considered a recession?
They said that was a rule of thumb, but not necessarily true.
Two?
Yeah, 2 in a row, but that's not necessarily true.
But that's the rule of thumb.
Yeah, they said recessions are sometimes summarized as 2 quarters of a negative GDP growth, but the determination actually requires analysis of many factors.
Yeah, okay.
And the length of a recession could be shorter or longer than 2 quarters.
So all I'm saying is just as I said before with all the tariffs talk and all the stuff that Trump's doing, is that we'll have to wait and see. Nobody's ever done anything like this before. No one's ever tried to do something like this. No one's ever tried to get investment back into the United States in my lifetime. It's all been the opposite. It's all been tax breaks for corporations to take good jobs and send them over to people in desperate situations so they can make more money, which hollows out our manufacturing base.
Right.
And so this is, according to Scott Bessent and to Donald Trump, this is their attempt to try to reinvigorate manufacturing. Again, I don't know anything about this. All I know is that what I said is let's wait and see. And so currently, the second quarter, we had a bigger raise in GDP and inflation didn't go crazy. And so all the stuff that those doomsayers were saying about the tariffs didn't come true. And Trump just got a great deal, a great tariff deal worked out with the European Union. Now, it hasn't been ratified yet, but it's been agreed to with the head of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen. And so
if that Nazi went along with it, then it means that they had no choice and it's going to get voted in. Again, I think Trump is merely getting us a better position in the New World Order. That's why they're going along with it. The whole goal for years was to destroy America to get us closer to global governance. And if you recall, that's what the WHO was going to do, give sovereignty on your health.
That's right.
To an outside. One side wants to do the New World Order but keep America in it. The other side wants it dissolved into the larger, Euro crap, ugly rainbow flag, whatever the hell they were trying to make for the last however many years.
And if you want to come hear my jokes about the New World Order, you can do it this Sunday in Oxnard, California, or in Rutherford, New Jersey, or in Manhattan at the Village Underground, or in Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. So this, I'm going to say this is a win for Donald Trump, especially if the people at CNBC are making fun of the people at MSNBC over it. Come see us in Oxnard, California, Rutherford, New Jersey, Manhattan, New York, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Appleton, Wisconsin, Rosemont, and Chicago, Illinois. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.